Last night, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got 60 seconds to Republicans John Kasich and war criminal Colin Powell's multiple to nominate Bernie Sanders in a symbolic procedural move that happens almost every convention, but this is how NBC News chose to frame it. In one of the shortest speeches at the DNC, Representative Ocasio-Cortez did not endorse Joe Biden. She was then attacked by Democratic Party loyalists and people who support Joe Biden, saying she was sowing disunity in the party, and NBC News only issued a correction late at night, which AOC took issue with, asking how they'll fix the damage and misinformation they spread because a 1:15 a.m. tweet to slip under the radar after blowing up a totally false and divisive narrative across networks isn't it, she wrote. To me, this is a part of the media's unconscious bias. They hate the progressive movement. They hate that she chose her time to celebrate Bernie Sanders and provide a path forward for the progressive movement.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, en el espíritu del pueblo and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
That was absolutely beautiful. I will never, ever, ever forget the day that she endorsed Bernie at that outdoor rally in New York. It was a wonderful day. It was wonderful to be there. I'll remember my friend Michael was there with me, and it was a historic moment no matter the outcome of the primary. And what she said there, she managed to squeeze in what the movement is centered around. Healthcare, a living wage, ending colonialism, which I thought was really important that she pointed out, racial injustice, wealth inequality, and she was also able to celebrate her heritage as a Latina American and what that brings and the perspective that that brings to Congress. I mean, she's just a force. But no, NBC decided to make the headline a false headline and framed it in a way that, of course, oh, these progressives like AOC and Bernie Sanders, they're going to make Trump win and they're sowing disunity per usual when, of course, if you have any basic knowledge of the Democratic Convention and its procedures, you would know that isn't the case. Ocasio-Cortez's short speech was symbolic. Every candidate for president who brings delegates to the party convention is required to be formally nominated by someone, a role Ocasio-Cortez shared with former United Auto Workers Union head Bob King. Her nomination came just a day after Sanders himself gave a speech to his supporters at the convention, outlining Joe Biden's healthcare plan and calling on his supporters to rally behind Biden's campaign. But if he loses, it's still Bernie's fault, by the way. But Ocasio-Cortez, who is pointed to as one of the progressive movement's next leaders, used her limited convention time to celebrate the movement Sanders has led. She gave a speech that focused on a vision for progressives that moved past Sanders' campaign and spoke directly to the movement that progressives created around Sanders' two presidential campaigns while highlighting policies like universal health care and free higher education. She didn't mention Sanders until nearly the end of her nomination. Her speech then led into the roll call process that officially made Joe Biden the Democratic nominee for president. She has said she plans to vote for Biden in November and congratulated him in a tweet after her speech aired. But it's never enough. It's never enough. Progressives could literally go on national television and AOC could bow down to Joe Biden and praise him and kiss his feet, and then if he loses in November, it's still her and Bernie's fault. Why wouldn't they get behind him? But like there is this dynamic in the media which is amusing and also frustrating at the same time, that they'll criticize Bernie way more because he's a white man and they don't want to feel like they're in any way perceived as racist in the neoliberal center left by going after Ocasio-Cortez, because also she faces immense and even more misogyny and vitriol for her identity from the right. So she has that, I guess, shield from at least the left, but gets it way worse on the right. Anyway, it's just an incredibly frustrating dynamic, and I don't think there's a story that crystallizes more the immense weight of the biases and hatred towards the progressive movement that is embedded in every mainstream media outlet. So, like, I know your Fox News watching grandpa is going to lecture you and talk about how CNN's liberal and all that. You guys know where the real progressive media is, but there's nothing. There's no equivalent in corporate news. There never will be, because progressivism, challenging the establishment, challenging corporate interests and the wealthy, that's antithetical to what they do. And so that's why they despise people like Bernie Sanders and AOC to an extent as well, and just the progressive movement in general.